It's crazy, man, because I was just with Lamont, like, literally, like, a week, maybe before he died.
I went to the funeral and it was fucked up, man. You know what I'm saying? To see your man laying in the casket, the whole Moesha cast, man, was there, man, you know?
Have you ever laughed because of Hakeem, the always hungry guy in Moesha? That was Lamont Bentley, a young talent on the rise, a living proof of the American dream, with a resilient smile. But no one expected that laughter would turn into a scream of desperation on the highway in the early hours of January 19, 2005. No alcohol, no drugs, no sign of losing control. His manager said he was extremely happy that night. He was talking about his future. But what really happened in those final seconds? What was Lamont running from? Or was he trying to escape Hollywood itself? The place that gave him the spotlight, then swallowed him in silence. Before Hollywood knew the name Lamont Bentley, he was just another black kid in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where people often say, "Here dreams don't even get the chance to bloom," before life crushes them. Lamont Bentley was born on October 25, 1973, in North Milwaukee, a working-class neighborhood where black families lived cramped together in old apartment rows. Daytime brought the laughter of children. Nighttime was dim yellow streetlight filtering through the mist as if the whole neighborhood was trying to keep hope alive for something better. His mother, Lois Bentley, held on to an unfinished dream of singing. His father was listed as Donald L. Gardison. But the American dream for families here was usually just a story they told each other to survive disappointment in a tough life. Especially for a young black kid like Lamont, the road from here to the stage lights seemed nearly impossible. But Lamont refused to accept impossible. At just 12 years old, he practiced signing his own autograph, not for a teacher's praise, but for the day it would appear on movie posters. While other kids dreamed of cars or sports teams, Lamont worked for real movie theaters, fish markets, grocery stores, anything to earn a few dollars for auditions. He didn't wait for miracles, he made them. Then destiny intervened. As Lamont entered his teenage years, his mother made a bold decision leaving Milwaukee for Los Angeles. From a gray industrial city to the capital of lights, Hollywood, a place that could be both Heaven's Gate and a giant mouth ready to devour anyone. Lois left to chase music. Lamont left to chase himself. Among thousands of kids dreaming the same dream, Lamont began to stand out thanks to his natural humor. Just one joke, one lifted eyebrow, and the room burst into laughter. In 1986, he started appearing in commercials, including a Starburst ad when he was very young. Those were his first steps onto the stage of life. But the most beautiful thing about Lamont was not that he got out of Milwaukee, but that he never left it behind. His childhood had no magic. It had stereotypes. It had pressure. But every morning in class, he reminded himself, "I wasn't born to stand in the shadows." And that belief pushed a boy from Milwaukee straight into Hollywood, where the fire of his life burned brightest. From a commercial kid to America's beloved star, Los Angeles in the early 90s was as harsh as a survival battle among thousands of dreamers. Many arrived with bright eyes and left with broken hearts. But Lamont was different. He didn't wait for luck, he chased it. He appeared occasionally on TV, a few commercials, a few guest spots. Then, in 1994, he joined the series South Central, a short drama about poor black life produced by Ralph Farquhar. Lamont officially crossed the line from guest actor to someone Hollywood noticed. The industry was now paying attention to the kid who practiced his signature back in Milwaukee. But the biggest turning point of his life felt like fate. In 1996, UPN launched the new sitcom, Moesha, the first show to center a middle-class black family. A series for the young black generation Hollywood had long ignored. Casting had to be perfect. And when they searched for a funny, genuine working-class neighborhood friend to balance Moesha's well-off life, they found Lamont. No one expected a role meant simply to make people laugh would change his entire destiny. Hakeem Campbell entered viewers' lives like he had always been there. Always hungry, always showing up at the Mitchells for food, yet never losing pride or his good heart. Hakeem represented a whole community, black kids not born at the starting line, surviving poverty with humor. Lamont didn't act Hakeem. He was Hakeem. His authenticity breathed life beyond the script. That's why across 127 episodes and 6 seasons, America didn't just love Moesha, they loved him. The boy from Milwaukee became the soul of the sitcom, part of the childhood of an entire generation. Ratings soared. Episodes with Hakeem always exploded with laughter and audience reaction. Lamont became a symbol of Black Hollywood fun. Real the neighbor you always wished you had. But the spotlight is also an invisible cage. Audiences loved Hakeem so much, they only saw him as Hakeem. Hollywood was even harsher. You're funny, stay that way. But Lamont didn't want to live inside a single character forever, even if that character made him a star. He wanted to prove he had many layers. So he did what most typecast actors are afraid to do. He stepped into the dark truths of Black life. In 1995, while Moesha was still running, Lamont played Crazy K in Tales from the Hood, a character full of violence and trauma. This role declared, "I can go deeper than smiles." Audiences were shocked and impressed. Lamont Bentley could deliver tragedy and psychological horror. By 2001, he appeared in The Wash alongside Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. This was no longer the playground of UPN teen stars, but major commercial cinema. Then, in 2004, Lamont joined the project Sucker Free City with Spike Lee, one of the most powerful directors when it comes to Black stories. This was strong proof that Hollywood had begun to realize Lamont Bentley was not just Hakeem, he was a real actor. Not only that, Lamont also spent many nights pursuing music. He was a rapper in the group Uprise with support from the famous rapper Coolio. A debut album was being planned, and another future was opening up ahead of him, one where Lamont could tell his own life story through the music he loved. At that time, Lamont Bentley was standing at the most crucial moment of his career. After years of being seen as the funny guy, the door to maturity had finally opened. Everyone saw it clearly. If nothing went wrong, he would soon surpass Hakeem. But then, a fateful moment. A beautiful light ripped away from Hollywood in just a few seconds. A career at its very peak was suddenly cut off in the most brutal and tragic way imaginable. Hollywood went silent. Fans were stunned. The fatal night. A horrifying crash scene. The night of January 18, 2005 began like any other for Lamont Bentley, a young star at the height of his potential. After a screening in Westwood for the short film Shards, he left the event excited. His manager Susan Ferris recalled, "He was a bright candle that just got snuffed out," she said. "He was in a great place, emotionally, physically. Everything was going right for him." Lamont told her he felt like a new chapter was opening. But just hours after midnight struck, fate wrote him an ending, without any warning. Around 12:23 a.m. on January 19, 2005, Lamont was suddenly pronounced dead. The location, CA 118 Ronald Reagan Freeway near Simi Valley, Ventura County, California. He was driving alone in his Mercedes-Benz, heading northwest of Los Angeles, a familiar highway by day. But at night, near the Rocky Peak Fire Road off-ramp, it turned into a dangerous challenge for any driver. Witnesses later said the car was speeding, not slowing down as it approached the exit. A stop sign appeared, but the car didn't stop. It broke through a chain-link fence, rolled down an embankment, and was thrown back into the freeway lanes. Even more horrifying, 5 cars ran over him before rescuers arrived. Nothing was left intact, not even him. The frightening combination of high-speed, dangerous terrain and total isolation caused his death from multiple blunt force injuries. The most haunting detail, no alcohol or drugs were found in his system. This was not a typical drunk driving accident. He wasn't a passenger, he was alone. Alone on a dark highway at the off-ramp between warning signs and a chain-link fence. A series of small tragic moments that erased an entire future. As the news spread, Hollywood was shocked. A beloved actor, a funny teen icon who had just begun breaking into major dramatic roles in rap music, was gone in unclear circumstances. Fans of Moesha, especially late 90s kids, were heartbroken. Hakeem was no longer here. Castmates, co-stars, and colleagues were left speechless. Losing him meant losing a role model. To the Black community, Lamont was one of their own, someone they saw themselves in. To Hollywood, he was a rising star. Extinguished too soon, the tragedy became a warning. To the public, if he hadn't crashed, who would he have become? A question that haunts fans and media alike. And that is the most painful part of this tragedy. If he had lived 5 more years, 10 more years, how many films could he have starred in? How many roles would have amazed Hollywood? How many rap albums would he have finished? Sometimes the so-called stolen fortune is not money. It's the years you never get to live. The crash that took Lamont Bentley's life didn't just shake Hollywood over the loss of a talent, it opened a maze of misunderstandings, speculation, and even chilling stories fueled by media and the internet. Misunderstandings about Lamont Bentley's death. When darkness covers the truth. In the first days after the news broke, many outlets wrongly reported that the crash happened on the I-405 freeway, a place packed with lights and suffocating traffic. That mistake made the public imagine a chaotic urban collision, as if Lamont had been pulled into a night of out-of-control partying. But the truth was entirely different. He crashed on CA-118 near Simi Valley, a dark, quiet stretch of road where even the smallest driving mistake could become deadly. One wrong number. And suddenly, the story became far more sensational than reality. As soon as the accident was announced, the usual assumptions appeared right away. He must have been drinking. Or worse, he must have been using drugs. It's almost a reflex in the media when a young star dies. And so the flashy headlines came, painting a picture of Lamont speeding into the night after endless partying, losing control, and causing his own disaster. But the coroner's report delivered a cold truth. No alcohol, no drugs, no intoxicants of any kind in his body. Lamont was completely sober in those fateful moments. This not only erased cruel stereotypes, but also made his death even more painful. There was no easy explanation, no one to blame, only a raw, unfair tragedy. Some even speculated that he was depressed, desperate, that maybe Lamont no longer saw a way forward in his career. But his friends and manager told the exact opposite story. That night, he left the screening with a bright smile, talking about new projects and new opportunities. He was not falling into darkness, he was rising and rising fast. And the more people learned that, the harder it became to accept the truth. Sometimes a painful death doesn't need a dark backstory. It just arrives and takes someone beloved away. Some reports even describe the crash like a Hollywood explosion scene. The car bursting into flames in the middle of the freeway. But again, the truth was simpler and more brutal. The car did not explode. What made the injuries fatal was the fact that Lamont was thrown from the vehicle, something the tabloids didn't bother to highlight, because it wasn't as exciting as fire blazing in the dark. Piece by piece, twisted information spread and reshaped itself. Each hand that touched the story added another layer of drama. Not because people were being cruel, but because no one wanted to believe a young man full of hope could die just because of a wrong exit and a night too dark. When the truth doesn't satisfy the fear and shock inside the audience, people start creating legends. They gave it many names: Hakeem's tragedy, highway horror, and eventually they made it part of the so-called Moesha curse. But if we strip away all the sensationalism, all the rumors, all attempts to turn this into mythology, only one simple and heartbreaking truth remains. Lamont Bentley did nothing wrong. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't reckless. He didn't destroy himself. He simply wanted to drive home after a night filled with hope. And that death, because it was so sudden, so lacking in reason, so cold, became a truth that many could not bear to accept. The media can fabricate 1,000 stories, fans can whisper about curses. But beneath all that noise, what we must remember is this: Lamont Bentley deserves to have his story told truthfully. As a brilliant talent, as a symbol of Black youth, as a smile that once saved an entire generation of viewers. The Moesha curse and the rumors surrounding it. In entertainment, when a show becomes deeply beloved behind the spotlight, there often appear whispered stories where audiences don't just laugh, but also wonder, is something else happening behind all this? With Moesha, one of the most iconic family sitcoms for Black audiences in the late 90s, not only were there unforgettable episodes, but also a haunting emotional pattern that echoed within the fan community. That was the Moesha curse. It wasn't just a silly rumor, it was the accumulation of many tragedies connected to the cast. The media and fans repeated it like an invisible warning. When you step into the spotlight, the darkness may rise to swallow you. So where did this curse come from? Looking back at the sad events after Moesha ended in 2001, many prominent cast members or notable guest stars faced major misfortunes, early deaths, illnesses, and accidents. It's said that around 15 people in the Moesha circle, main cast notable guests, and close production members have passed away or faced tragedy, prompting media and fans to ask, is there an invisible thread connecting glory and sorrow? Merlin Santana, the first bullet that began the chain of tragedies. When people mention the Moesha curse, the first name fans usually bring up is Merlin Santana, the young actor who once appeared on the sitcom as a guest star. Merlin was born in 1976 in New York of Dominican descent and grew up in Harlem, the cradle of black culture, where every street carried the smell of smoke jazz and the dream of changing your life. He began acting as a teenager, discovered at age 15 on The Cosby Show, and later rose through The Steve Harvey Show and Moesha. Handsome with the look of a Latin star blended with black cool, Merlin became a new model for young actors, charming, stylish, and once expected to be the next Denzel Washington. But Hollywood never got the chance to witness that future. On the night of November 9, 2002, Merlin was sitting inside a Jeep with his friend actor Damian Dash in the Crenshaw area of Los Angeles. A 15-year-old girl they had met earlier at a party told her boyfriend that Merlin made inappropriate advances toward her of false accusation. Her boyfriend and his accomplices set up an ambush. When Merlin's car stopped at a red light, a bullet shot straight into his head. He collapsed right in his seat, only 26 years old. Police later arrested the shooter Damon Andre Johnson, who was sentenced to 27 years in prison. The girl who spread the lie received 10 years. But the most haunting part is, this Merlin died because of a lie. That death became the first bullet setting off the losses fans would later call the Moesha curse. The cast was shaken, especially Yvette Wilson, who had worked with Merlin in The Steve Harvey Show. She said she couldn't believe it. Years later, when she herself fell ill, she still said, "I miss Merlin, and I know we will meet again." 3 years after Merlin's death, the curse carved another cruel mark. Lamont Bentley suffered a tragic and horrific accident. The man who once made millions laugh with the line, "Yo Mo, you got anything to eat?" suddenly became one of the most heartbreaking tragedies in American television. He was only 31. After Lamont passed away, the reaction from fans and media was intense. On obituary sites like Legacy.com, many people wrote heartfelt condolences. "Your smile helped me through my darkest days. I still watch Moesha, and you are forever in our hearts." On Reddit and fan forums, posts appeared, Lamont Bentley was driving alone when he lost control. He ejected and got run over 5 times. Mainstream media like the Los Angeles Times also published detailed analysis of the crash. Actor Lamont Bentley, known for sitcom role, dies in freeway crash. The article emphasized that no alcohol or drugs were found, making the cause even harder to understand. In 2012, the curse struck again, this time not on a freeway or a night filled with gunfire, but in a hospital. Yvette Wilson, the last smile in the storm of illness. Yvette Wilson, the actress who played Andell Wilkerson, the owner of the Den Moesha's close friend, was the comedic soul of the series. Audiences loved her warm, cheerful personality that always made people feel safe and welcome. In The Parkers, a spin-off of Moesha, she continued for 5 years, becoming the big sister of the cast. But few knew that behind her smile, she had been battling illness for years. Yvette suffered from chronic kidney disease and had to undergo regular dialysis. In 2000, she received a kidney transplant. After that, fate tested her again when she was diagnosed with stage 4 cervical cancer, which had spread to other parts of her body. The massive medical expenses led friends and fans to create a fund called Cancer Sucks, support Yvette Wilson to help her fight. Her close friend Shar Jackson, also a Moesha castmate, shared on Twitter, "Oh God, my heart is so unbelievably broken. God has chosen to take my sister Yvette home." Comedian Monique called Yvette a warrior who made the world laugh, even while she herself was suffering. On June 14, 2012, Yvette passed away in Los Angeles at the age of 48. At her memorial, it wasn't called a funeral, but a celebration of life. They played her funniest scenes, showing Andal smiling behind the counter at the Den, and people laughed and cried at the same time. A fan wrote on Legacy.com, and once again people repeated the Moesha curse Merlin shot. Lamont in a car crash. Yvette in illness. 3 deaths. 3 fates. 3 different circumstances. But the same haunting pattern, they all left too soon. For audiences, these deaths didn't feel like coincidences. To them, Moesha was once the voice of Black youth, and when those connected to the show were taken one by one, it wasn't just personal loss, but the loss of a piece of collective memory. Fans asked, is there something beyond coincidence? The media gave it a name, the Moesha curse. However, one crucial point, there is no clear cause and effect evidence that Moesha created tragedy. Everything is association and community storytelling, not science. When telling this topic, one must always remind, the curse is not real. It is the way people try to explain tragedy. A critic once wrote in The Root Moesha, didn't just represent Black youth, it carried their hopes. And when its stars fell, those hopes fell with them. What makes the Moesha curse motif so powerful is the way it touches a universal fear. The fear of losing people too soon. The fear that the spotlight comes with shadows. The fear that when many eyes are on you, you might be treated like a commodity. And when you fall, no one catches you in time. For the Black community, where Moesha once served as a screen that reflected them, Lamont's death became a reminder that hope can shatter. That is why the questions weren't simply, why did he die? But why him, and is something controlling fate? When you talk about a curse, you're talking about memory fear and the human search for answers when logic fails to comfort. Lamont never had major scandals, but his death still became symbolic because it carried all the elements: talent, ambition, tragedy, and a future cut far too short. And within the phenomenon of the Moesha curse, we see that personal tragedies are easier for a community to accept when they become part of a bigger story. And when you look at the idea of a curse, you are looking at how humans deal with loss, not with logic, but through storytelling and legend as a way to keep the lost alive in our minds. If on screen Hakeem Campbell was always the boy hungry for food, but full of friendship, then in real life, Lamont Bentley was a man who quietly put family above the showbiz spotlight. What many don't know is that before he became a symbol of 90s Black youth, Lamont had been someone who loved deeply and a devoted father. Love, marriage, and family. When happiness was taken too soon. Before fame took over his life, Lamont once had a serious relationship. He and his partner, whose identity remains private to protect their family, had 2 daughters together, Artesia and Brazil. Their love wasn't sealed with a glamorous wedding or media coverage, but Lamont saw them as his true family. To him, love didn't need to be flashy, only honest and steady. Even though acting brought him to long and exhausting filming schedules, Lamont never let his career be an excuse to lose his role as a father. Friends said that whenever he left the set or the studio, the first thing he did was rush home to hug his 2 little girls. In the few photos of them still found online, Lamont is always smiling ear to ear when he's with his children. A smile that wasn't part of a role, but the pride of a father dreaming of a better life for the next generation. One daughter was named after the state where he began his Hollywood journey, California stage name Brazil, and the other named after one of his rap-era monikers, Artesia. They were proof that Lamont wove his dreams into his love for family. He wanted his daughters to know that life isn't just about fighting to survive, but living to dream. He would often tell his manager, "I want my kids to be proud that their dad stepped out of Milwaukee." But private happiness wasn't free from storms. That love story didn't end with a complete wedding. The pressure of a young actor trying to escape poverty, the sudden night shootings, the long trips. They couldn't hold on to each other. But even after parting ways, one thing never changed. He was the father of those 2 girls forever. His manager once shared that Lamont didn't drink, didn't party recklessly, didn't chase the spotlight to fill a void inside. What made him truly happy wasn't applause. It was his girls running into his arms every weekend. His love for his children was his anchor in the harsh world of Hollywood. Then that fateful night in 2005 arrived like a storm with no warning, tearing away a father at the happiest moment of his life. When the official announcement was released, the world mentioned Lamont Bentley as an actor who died in a crash. But to Artesia and Brazil, that was their dad, the man who promised he would always be there. And that promise was cut short too soon. They were still so young, not old enough to understand why the world suddenly felt incomplete. They grew up with an emptiness where their father's arms should have been. On social media, whenever a post about Moesha resurfaces, fans still leave comments. May his daughters be happy. Hakeem would always be proud. And indeed, the most important legacy Lamont left behind wasn't just the laughs he gave the world, but the two Bentley girls' two heartbeats continuing the dream their father began. No one knows where life will take Artesia and Brazil. Maybe they'll follow their father into showbiz, or maybe they'll choose a quieter life. But no matter which path they choose, the world will look at them with the love that once belonged to Lamont, a father who never got to watch them grow up, but who taught them the most important lesson: smile even when life tests you. Hollywood took Lamont away from his family in just one moment. But the love he gave to his daughters is something no death can ever touch. Wealth legacy, and the light that never fades from Lamont Bentley. A star may fade away in a moment, but the light he leaves behind is what stays with us forever. For Lamont Bentley, his worth wasn't measured by bank accounts, but by the smiles and hope he gave millions. Yet to fully speak of what he left for the world, we must look at both sides, the material and the spiritual. When Lamont passed away in 2005, no official public record confirmed his net worth. 6 seasons of Moesha, a hit sitcom in a nation of 300 million people, provided stable income and especially residuals, the long-term payments actors receive whenever the show re-airs on television or streaming. These royalties can sustain many actors for life. But for Lamont, that became unfinished potential because he left too soon before his film career, and music could truly explode. He wasn't robbed of money. He was robbed of time, the years he never got to live and give his all. But when it comes to legacy, Lamont Bentley is a name that can never be erased from the memories of a whole generation of TV viewers. One thing is certain, he will always be remembered as Hakeem Campbell, the kind-hearted working-class neighbor in Moesha. Hakeem reflected real life for so many black youth in America, hungry for money and opportunities, but always full of optimism and kindness. And Lamont breathed his truth into that character. Fans wrote on Legacy.com, "Your smile helped me through my darkest days. You will always be our Hakeem. If he were still alive, there would be so much more waiting for him. But because he left too soon, the only thing we can do now is keep that light alive for the generations to come. So if you ever loved Moesha, ever loved Hakeem, ever laughed because of Lamont, leave a tribute, RIP Lamont Bentley." If you want to continue exploring the untold stories behind Hollywood's bright lights, click subscribe to join us as we preserve the legacies of legends.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.